There is a moment, and if you are honest with yourself, you have felt it, where you are sitting in the middle of your own life, surrounded by everything you worked for, everything you planned, everything the world told you would make you happy, and yet you feel absolutely nothing. Not sadness, not anger, not even disappointment. Just a quiet, hollow emptiness that sits in your chest like a stone you cannot name and cannot move. You pick up your phone because you do not know what else to do. You scroll, you watch, you consume, and still nothing. The colors of the world have gone flat. The things that once made your heart race now barely make you blink. You laugh when you are supposed to laugh. You nod when you are supposed to nod. But inside, you are running on a frequency that nobody else can hear. A low, distant hum of exhaustion that never fully goes away, no matter how much you sleep, no matter how much you rest, no matter how many times you tell yourself that tomorrow will feel different. And the cruelest part of all of this is that you cannot explain it. You have no tragedy to point to, no dramatic story of loss, no clear reason for the fog. And so you do what most people do. You blame yourself. You call yourself lazy. You call yourself ungrateful. You whisper to yourself in the dark that maybe this is just who you are now. But I need you to stop right there, because what you are feeling is not a character flaw. It is not weakness. It is not ingratitude. It is something happening inside your brain, something biological, something measurable, something that has a name. And once you understand it, everything begins to make a different kind of sense. Your brain runs on a chemical called dopamine. Most people have heard of it, but very few truly understand what it does. It is not simply the pleasure chemical, the way it is often described in casual conversation. Dopamine is the chemical of anticipation, of drive, of forward motion. It is the internal engine that makes you get out of bed in the morning. It is the force that makes a goal feel worth chasing, that makes a meal feel worth cooking, that makes a conversation feel worth having. When your dopamine system is healthy and balanced, life has a kind of texture to it, a richness, a dimension, a sense that things matter and that your effort means something. Small things carry weight. A morning cup of tea, a walk in the evening light, the satisfaction of finishing something you started, these things register in a healthy brain as genuinely rewarding. They feel like something. And that feeling, that quiet sense of reward, is what motivates you to keep going, to keep building, to keep caring about your own life. But here is where the story turns. Here is where something has gone profoundly wrong for millions of people living in the modern world, and most of them have no idea it is happening. Every single source of stimulation in your daily life triggers a dopamine response in your brain. Every notification on your phone, every swipe through a social media feed, every bite of processed food engineered to be irresistible, every autoplay video that begins before you even decide to watch it, every breaking news alert, every like, every comment, every small digital reward that the modern world has been specifically and deliberately designed to deliver to your nervous system at maximum speed and minimum effort. Your brain was never built for this. It evolved over hundreds of thousands of years in an environment where reward was rare, where pleasure had to be earned, where dopamine was released in response to genuine effort, genuine achievement, genuine connection. In that ancient environment, dopamine was precious, a signal that said, "This matters, remember this, do this again." It was powerful precisely because it was not constant. But in the world we live in today, dopamine has become noise. It is everywhere, all the time, in quantities the human brain was simply never designed to process. And when any system is overwhelmed beyond its design, it does what all overwhelmed systems do. It adapts. Your brain, faced with this relentless flood of artificial stimulation, begins to downregulate its own dopamine receptors. It becomes less sensitive. It requires more input to produce the same response. The volume dial in your mind gets turned up higher and higher, and the music gets louder and louder, until one day the speakers blow, and everything goes quiet. That silence is what you have been living in. That silence is what Dr. Mindful Shift calls the true hidden face of dopamine burnout. Not a dramatic collapse, not a breakdown you can point to, but a slow, silent dimming of the light inside you that happens so gradually you barely notice, until one day you look around and realize that the world has lost its color, and you cannot remember exactly when that happened or how to find it again. This is the epidemic nobody is talking about. This is the crisis hiding in plain sight inside the daily habits of billions of people. And the first step toward healing, the first act of true self-compassion you can offer yourself, is simply to understand that what has happened to you is real, it is neurological, it is not your fault, and it is not permanent. Now, here is where it gets harder to hear, and I need you to stay with me, because what comes next is the part that most people never reach. Most people read the first signs and nod along and think, yes, that sounds familiar, and then they close the tab and go back to scrolling, and nothing changes. But you are still here, and that means something. That means some part of you, however small, however exhausted, still believes that understanding this could change something. So I am going to ask you to sit with what I am about to tell you, even if it is uncomfortable, even if it lands somewhere tender inside you. Because the truth that nobody warns you about dopamine burnout is not just that it makes life feel empty. It is that it is progressive. It deepens over time. It does not stay at the level where things simply feel a little flat and a little colorless. Left unaddressed, left unnamed, left buried under more scrolling and more stimulation and more distraction, it moves into the deeper chambers of your life and begins dismantling things you did not even realize were connected to your brain's reward system. Your relationships, your ambition, your sense of identity, your ability to imagine a future worth moving toward. And the most dangerous part of this progression is how invisible it is, even to the person living inside it. Think about the last time you started something you genuinely wanted to do. A project, a creative pursuit, a plan for your health, a goal you wrote down with real excitement, and then quietly abandoned it, not because something went wrong, but because the motivation simply evaporated. You woke up one morning and the thing that had felt urgent and alive the day before now felt distant and irrelevant, and you told yourself you would come back to it, and you never did. Most people call that procrastination. Most people blame their discipline, their focus, their character. But what was actually happening in those moments was a dopamine system so depleted that it could no longer sustain the neurological bridge between intention and action. Motivation is not a personality trait, it is a chemical process. And when the chemistry is broken, willpower alone cannot carry you across that gap, no matter how hard you try, no matter how many motivational quotes you read, no matter how many mornings you wake up and promise yourself that today will be different. The effort without the chemistry is like pressing the accelerator of a car that has run out of fuel. The desire to move is real, the movement simply cannot come. And then there are the relationships. This is the part that cuts the deepest, the part that Dr. Mindful Shift speaks about with the most urgency, because it is the most human cost of dopamine burnout and the least discussed. When your brain's reward system is depleted, human connection stops feeling rewarding. Not because the people in your life have changed, not because you love them less in some abstract sense, but because your nervous system can no longer process the warmth of their presence the way it once did. Conversations that should feel nourishing feel draining. Invitations that should feel like joy feel like obligation. The people who love you most begin to feel the distance, and they do not understand it, and neither do you. And in that mutual confusion, relationships begin to fracture quietly and slowly until one day you look around and realize you have been slowly disappearing from your own life and taking everyone who mattered with you into that disappearance. Here is the suspense I need you to hold right now. The question that should be sitting in the center of your chest as you absorb all of this. How long has this been happening to you? Not when did it get bad. When did it begin? Because dopamine burnout does not arrive suddenly. It does not announce itself. It infiltrates gradually, dressed as tiredness, dressed as busyness, dressed as the ordinary numbness of a life that has simply gotten too full of the wrong kinds of stimulation. It could have begun years ago. It could have begun in adolescence when the first smartphone arrived and rewired the brain during the most neurologically sensitive window of human development. It could have begun in a period of high stress when you turned to screens and food and constant noise to cope, and the coping mechanism slowly became the cage. It could have been building so quietly for so long that the version of yourself you remember, the one who felt things deeply, who woke up with energy, who cared fiercely about the future, feels like a different person entirely, someone you are not sure you can find your way back to. But here is what I need you to hear before this moment passes. That person is not gone. That aliveness is not lost. The brain that has been dimmed by overstimulation is the same brain that built civilizations, that wrote poetry, that fell in love, that found meaning in the smallest and most ordinary moments of human experience. It is not broken beyond repair. It is exhausted. It is overwhelmed. It is waiting, not for a miracle, not for a dramatic intervention, but for the right conditions to begin healing. And healing, when it comes to the brain, is not a distant possibility. It is a biological certainty, given the right environment, the right inputs, and the right understanding of what your nervous system actually needs to come back to life. So let us talk about what coming back actually looks like. Not the version that gets sold to you in 30-second clips and overnight transformation stories, but the real version. The honest, unglamorous, profoundly meaningful version that requires you to become a different kind of person than the one modern life has been quietly shaping you into. Because recovery from dopamine burnout is not a detox you complete in a weekend. It is not a supplement you take, or an app you download, or a morning routine you follow for 2 weeks before abandoning it like every other attempt. It is a fundamental restructuring of your relationship with stimulation, with reward, with effort, and ultimately with yourself. And it begins not with action, but with stillness, which is the one thing your overstimulated nervous system has been running from for so long that the very idea of it may feel threatening right now. Sit with that. Notice that. Because the discomfort you feel at the thought of doing nothing, of sitting in silence, of being without input for even 5 minutes, that discomfort is not boredom. It is withdrawal. It is your brain signaling that it has become dependent on constant stimulation to feel functional. And that signal, uncomfortable as it is also the beginning of your map back to yourself. The first and most essential step is what Dr. Mindful Shift describes as recalibrating your baseline, the process of deliberately and consistently reducing high stimulation inputs so that your brain's dopamine receptors can begin to recover their sensitivity. This does not mean eliminating all pleasure from your life. It means replacing artificial, engineered, frictionless pleasure with natural, earned, effortful pleasure. It means going for a walk without your headphones. It means cooking a meal from scratch and eating it without a screen in front of you. It means sitting with a book made of paper and giving it your full attention, even when your mind pulls toward the phone beside you. It means having a conversation with another human being and being fully present in it, not composing your response while they are still speaking, not half listening while a part of your brain monitors a notification in your peripheral vision, but actually there, actually listening, actually allowing another person's presence to land on you and mean something. These things sound almost embarrassingly simple, and that simplicity is precisely why most people dismiss them. But what is happening neurologically in each of those moments is profound. Your brain is being given the quiet, low-stimulation space it needs to upregulate its dopamine receptors, to rebuild its sensitivity, to begin finding genuine reward in the texture of ordinary life again. The second layer of recovery is rebuilding what was lost through small, consistent, deliberate action. Your sense of self-efficacy, your deep internal belief that your effort produces results, that you are capable of beginning something and seeing it through, has been eroded by months or years of starting and stopping, of intending and failing to follow through, of promising yourself change and watching that promise dissolve. You cannot rebuild that belief through grand gestures. You cannot restore it with a single powerful decision made in a moment of inspiration. You rebuild it the same way it was originally built, one small kept promise at a time. Make your bed. Finish the glass of water. Take the 10-minute walk you said you would take. Write the one paragraph you committed to writing, and then do it again tomorrow, and again the day after. Not because these actions are transformative in themselves, but because every single time you do what you said you would do, however small, your brain registers a real reward, a genuine, earned, natural dopamine signal that says you are someone who follows through. You are someone who can be trusted, even by yourself. And over time, that signal becomes the foundation of a rebuilt identity, an identity rooted not in how you feel in any given moment, but in what you consistently choose to do regardless of how you feel. The third and perhaps deepest layer is the philosophical one, the shift in how you understand what a meaningful life actually feels like from the inside. One of the most damaging lies that overstimulation has embedded in the modern mind is the belief that life is supposed to feel exciting all the time, that contentment is a consolation prize for people who have given up, that if you are not feeling something intense and immediate, then something must be wrong. But that is the dopamine-depleted brain talking. That is the voice of a nervous system so accustomed to artificial peaks that it has forgotten what genuine well-being feels like, which is quiet, which is steady, which is the simple, undramatic sense that you are present in your own life and that your presence means something. The ancient philosophers knew this. The contemplative traditions of every culture across human history knew this. Real aliveness is not loud. It does not arrive in a rush of stimulation or a flood of novelty. It arrives in a moment of genuine attention. A sunset you actually stopped to watch. A meal you actually tasted. A person you actually saw. These moments are available to you right now, today, in the life you already have. Your brain simply needs to be quiet enough and sensitive enough to receive them. And that quietness, that sensitivity, that restored capacity to be moved by ordinary beauty, that is not a distant destination. That is what you are already moving toward, simply by understanding what has been happening, simply by choosing to engage with this truth rather than scroll past it, simply by being here, at the end of this, still listening. The light inside you was never extinguished. It was only waiting for the noise to stop. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.